Timer. Nice. Post. Nice. Welcome back. Welcome back. Man, I really need to just do this. Huh. Yeah, I think I do need to do that. Okay, already that feels a lot better just doing that. So, what I just did was, ordinarily I have a very large number of tabs open, and Twitch is one of those tabs. What I did was just pop out the Twitch tab to a new window, and so now it's just OBS and the Twitch tab and nothing else. And so I just kind of have free reign to do whatever, which is nice. It's also quite a bit warmer today. Striptease again, kind of. There we go. It's like 50 degrees outside, which is quite nice. Fahrenheit, not centigrade. I know there are Europeans that watch me. Be like 10, 11 degrees centigrade. Anyways, I had a couple ideas. One in particular, but I think if I go back here, yes, there's one thing on Twitter I want to take a look at. There we go. Okay. Very nice indeed. Let me actually go look for the other thing that I wanted to do. There's like two big ideas I had on stream, and then I'm open to talk about what anybody else wants to talk about that would require some kind of analysis, commentary, or so forth. Let's see. There we go. Perfect. Ah, dang. Okay. There we go. Oh, I got a smile on my face just thinking about it. Oh man. Okay, this must be what it feels like to actually do some shit that you want to do on stream instead of like assuming that there's a set of things that you have to do as a streamer. I really do have a tendency to just make this shit way harder for myself than it needs to be. Paradoxically, even though this is a lazy stream and I titled it as such, this might even end up being like one of the better streams I've done in terms of like my mood. So let's get started. We'll start with your typical expectation of somebody who cares about politics in America, which is, holy shit, everything is falling apart all the time. In this case, it is ICE goons doing their thing. ICE has kind of, unfortunately, taken a back seat to, regime change in Venezuela and, threatening regime change for Mexico and Cuba. But they are still running amok. They are still completely unaccountable, and they are still violating the law as easily as they breathe. I am not going to play audio for this. We are going to see this video from Faitux Network. Some sort of news affiliate network. Not run by Faitux News. Great, cool. Random news account. Anyways, kind of forgot ICE existed for a minute. I'm sure that's by design, where it's like they kind of post through it. Anyways, here is, I muted this. Here is an ICE stop that occurred recently in Minneapolis. In fact, this was just from today. Potential TOS warning, maybe. And that's why. ICE pulled up, stopped this woman in her car, or this person. I don't know if it was a man or a woman. Oh, her. I guess it was a woman. Stopped this woman in her car. I'm explaining it right now. They pull up in an unmarked pickup truck. Of course, they're driving a fucking pavement princess because they're all limp dick, fascist, insecure cucks. They pull up. They get out. They've stopped this woman in the middle of the road. And they try to, you can see this is literally like Grand Theft Auto behavior. This guy tries to literally grab the door of her car and open the car, presumably to drag her out of the car onto the street and brutalize her and detain her. And so she's like, what the fuck? And so obviously she starts driving. She starts like, I need to get away from these guys. Then a second ICE officer, you can see here, immediately goes for the door to try to rip her out of her own vehicle. Then you see the second guy was in front of the car. He comes up, pulls his gun. It's kind of difficult to see, but here. There he is. He pulls his gun and shoots her as she's driving away. She did everything correctly in this situation. The ICE agents showed up, immediately were like displayed basically the intent to kill her, and she was like, oh shit, I'm in like immediate danger. I'm just gonna drive away because like the law sure as shit isn't gonna stop these guys. I need to just get out of here. And then they shoot her. And she crashes into another car. And everybody is,
you are fucking criminals!
That's the,
You're fucking criminals! What the fuck?
That's the general reaction of people in the neighborhood. I think she died. I think I don't think she would have survived that. She was shot at point blank. I hope she survived, but it seems like the ICE agent pulling a gun and shooting her just on the spot right there, it really doesn't seem like it. In fact, let me do this in case there's any gore present. The local residents do yell at ICE for a bit to tell them to get the fuck out of the neighborhood. And they do leave, I think. No, wait, their truck is still there. Yeah, that's the whole video. These people are monsters. My first instinct, funnily enough, because this woman had the camera, my first instinct was they don't have front plates. Go around to the back of the truck to try to get the plates. And I feel like in this scenario, like you can't just let these people get away. Block them in or something. Look, far be it from me to criticize. Like you've just witnessed somebody that lives in the neighborhood get shot by essentially an unaccountable federal police force, right? But we do know that local cops and ICE do not like each other. Yeah, recording them does provide a deterrent, similar to how recording cops provides a deterrent from them to just shoot somebody on the spot. Recording ICE does a similar thing, albeit to less of a degree because ICE is more willing to just kill you in the first place. The reason my brain went to like, why not go and get a shot of the plates is the reason I went there when I saw this video the first time was because like these people are wearing masks and are trying to shield themselves from accountability. There needs to be something to track all of them down. I guess in a sense, like ICE is a federal agency, right? So they'll have pay stubs and employment records. Legitimately, these people need to go into the oubliette and never come out. Like, these are people who enthusiastically signed up to be goons of the government to go and like shoot random men and women to play tough guy, essentially. You know, just another day in America or something. Um, and cameraman didn't do that because they knew that would have put them in danger. Possibly, possibly. That's why I said, like, far be it from me to criticize somebody who's like part of the neighborhood crowd reacting to a woman getting shot. But yeah, these people can never know a moment of peace. Yeah, you can see here somebody screenshotted, right? That this is the smoke from the gun. Uh, Somebody screenshotted at the moment she was shot. You can see very clearly the wheels are pointed away from the ICE agents. She's trying to drive away. Um, and they just shoot. What do I even say except these people are evil and need to be put in the hole for life? Like, there's a certain kind of fascist that is not too far gone, right? Your average Nick Fuentes viewer, your average, like, I don't know, somebody who watches one of the more mainstream far right content creators, Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens, um, Joe Rogan, they are not too far gone, right? They feel like they need to believe in something. They're extremely disaffected, and they've been given an emotional narrative to latch onto and so forth. Uh, I got bad news for you, Gotron. January 6th did succeed. Um, what was I saying? Yeah. Nick Fuentes, Joe Rogan, Candace Owens, like people who would be part of those audiences are not too far gone. These people are too far gone. Like, these are the kind of people that you just have to relentlessly socially suppress the political identity of for all time. You know? That's true, and that's what I was referring to. Um, like a Nick Fuentes viewer wants to be like epic and based and red pilled and stuff, but that's because they need some kind of emotional narrative. If you get that from the left, like you do get this like low IQ red brown alliance type shit where the regular person who is emotionally vested enough in politics to be swung based on emotional narratives can swing from the far right to the far left, or from the far left to the far right, in terms of their general sentiments. And like I said, Nick Fuentes, Joe Rogan, Candace Owens, these kind of increasingly normie coded content creators have audiences that are somewhat like that. Pretty dumb, but that ultimately means malleable. And in this case, me calling them dumb is a compliment, because if they weren't dumb, they'd just be unabashedly evil. These people are unabashedly evil. They revel in it. They don't want good things to happen. They actively want bad things to happen. They don't care about the fate of the country. You could give them the best emotional narrative under the sun. You could, like, it could be the era, like a new era of good political feeling. Populism from the left could be surging. The country could be turning around, and these people would fucking hate it because it means they don't get to brutalize brown people anymore. you know? Whereas I genuinely think if you had like a left populist that was sufficiently good at like embodying the sort of Huey Long kind of populism, uh, uh, then like there would be a substantial amount of like Nick Fuentes viewers and Candace Owens viewers who would be like, that guy's pretty cool though. Like he's doing some pretty great stuff. I like it, They would be excited for that because they're excitable people, which is a very human characteristic. All of us are excitable over certain things. Yeah, that's how I square the circle with respect to me believing in rehabilitative justice, but also believing that these people are too far gone to be rehabilitated. In order to be rehabilitated, you have to be capable of interacting with the world around you to a certain extent. Like if somebody commits a crime of passion, murder, reformative justice, like rehabilitative justice, would work with those kinds of people. It could even work with somebody who committed a number of murders, right? It would not work with people like this because people who murder, even serial killers, are not usually ideologically pro murder, right? Like if you ask somebody who had committed multiple murders, maybe, whether or not killing somebody is good, they would acknowledge that killing somebody is a bad thing, right? And that they're just, maybe they're rough and tumble and they do bad things all the time or whatever. They might make excuses, but I don't think they would try to argue that killing people is good. These are the actual, like the very rare hardcore kind of fascist that I think would actually defend the act of killing somebody as morally good and necessary, because this kind of person needs to be excised from society. A significant amount of overlap with some of the more deranged serial killers. It's the ideology of serial killers. Like the reformative justice here is being tested intensely as a concept, because how do you reform somebody who is ideologically pro the crime they're committing? How do you reform a rapist who is ideologically pro rape? That would actually be easier than one of these people. you know the Lincoln Project was right. We need to create a special detention facility where we send everybody who was part of the federal government, and especially part of ICE from this administration. It would just show trials, find them all guilty, send them into the fucking oubliette, and never look back. Like, we need to make Nuremberg look like absolute child's play. Like, society cannot withstand an institution for which this is its purpose. No country can survive this. Yeah, it is exceedingly lucky for them. Like none of this would be possible if it weren't supported by capital. You know, if the small business owners didn't vote for Trump. A lot of the people who are having their small businesses raided by ICE, not all of them are Democrats. They voted for this. They just didn't think that they would feel any of the consequences of their actions. Type shit. America's version of the secret police. Yeah, characteristic. Our secret police is not very secret. The worst. They're calling it the dumbest secret police of all time. I've been to countries that have secret police too. They understand that their job is to be a police force and not to actively like go around looking for people to black bag, right? Maybe they'll leave signs. It's enough that you know that they exist, you know? shit, to the extent that we even have a secret police force that resembles that, it's not even ICE. It's like literally just the FBI, which does like regular public facing stuff, but then behind the scenes has dossiers on everybody that are like compiled with extremely illegally obtained information from like keystroke logging and search histories and shopping habits, all the like information that the fucking advertisers collect on you. That's the real secret police shit. Because you think about the 20th century kind of secret police, the kind that currently operate in Morocco, or that the Stasi in Germany, the Gestapo also in Germany, or the KGB back in Soviet Russia, of eras past. Their job wasn't necessarily to just go and arrest people all the time. No, their job was to follow and observe people and write down notes and inform the state or other sorts of authorities that were part of the state to create a dossier, to create portfolios of information on each person, so that if something happened, they would be able to act on it very quickly and arrest you for, wrongthink. They were not this trigger happy. And a lot of the function that previous secret police forces served have now been rendered obsolete by the nature of dictatorship as increasingly Huxleyan. That is to say, everybody is so distracted that nobody really knows how to do good activism anymore. So in order to make the presence of the secret police felt, they have to do it in a way that's profoundly stupid and like has extremely negative public perception consequences, right? Like, I feel like ICE in the United States is the only form that a secret police is capable of being. Yeah, the Charlie Kirk incident was a perfect example of how incapable a modern state would be, like with all the modern comforts of first world quality of life in America, how incapable that political climate is of persecuting thought crime. They can't even build they just don't have the sauce to build that sort of network, because the end to which they collect all this information, the end to which the surveillance state exists, yes, is control, but it is not hard control through a police force. It's soft control, economic control through the artifice of capital to get you to buy more shit, to get you to go into debt infinitely. The force of state is increasingly abstracted to the point where it's like, oh, well, why are they collecting this information? So they can build a portfolio. Why are they building a portfolio? So you buy more stuff. Why do they want you to buy more stuff? Because that gets more money and that puts you into debt. Why do they want you to be in debt? Oh, because when you're in debt, you are obligated to pay off that debt. Why are you obligated to pay off that debt? Because you could be arrested for not paying it off and go to debtor's prison. Why would you be arrested? What's the threat there? Because they could shoot you if you refuse to pay your debt. It has to go through several layers of that, And increasingly, it's like that in a lot of countries, not just America, but greatest enemy to liberals, abstraction. No, the liberals are complicit in this. I think this has been a massive asset to the modern liberals. All that abstraction makes it easier for the status quo to persist. It's like it's one of the big contradictions of modern end stage capitalism is the sort of over encumbrance of bureaucracy. Except in this case, it's not even necessarily state bureaucracy. It is bureaucratic abstractions of various political objectives and offices and whatever, where nothing really serves its stated purpose anymore, to such an extent that it actually becomes a controversy whenever an office is used the way it's meant to be used. For example, in New York City, when Zoran Mamdani did the objectively politically smart and correct thing of rescinding all the executive orders that Eric Adams passed after he was indicted for corruption, or I think even convicted. Was he? He was convicted, right? Here, hold on. Eric Adams, corruption, conviction. Investigation. Was he ever found guilty of this? Investigation, reactions. No, but he was brought up on charges. Yeah, so like, oh, this guy is potentially engaging in criminal activity. Let me take all of his executive orders off the book because that could represent a conflict of interest. Literally, the stated intention of the office of mayor and all the news outlets flipped to shit because one of the executive orders was a anti-BDS order, or like 2 or 3 of them. And then like every right winger and to a certain extent as well, the wealthy and like neoliberal kind of talking heads really started hand-wringing and objecting to Zohran Mamdani, saying like, we're going to reinvigorate the office for the protection of tenants. We're going to crack down on slumlords. We're going to enforce the law. The very notion that these offices would be used for the things that they were meant to be used for in an active fashion is like kryptonite. You know, to the modern fascist and the modern neolib. They thrive off of such abstraction to the extent that like the initial purpose of social institutions is completely lost. It's its own kind of anti-truth narrative. You know how like fascist propaganda will obscure and muddle the truth by pretending to not know what it is until nobody actually knows what it is? Like even when they do see it? It's the same thing. By gaslighting everybody into believing that the stated purpose of an institution is not what it's actually supposed to do, you bury the purpose of social and government institutions to the point that they are no longer visible, to the point where people actually forget what they're supposed to do. You know, to the point that like, say that the Department of Labor, you know, it's really only in the name that it's supposed to represent the interests of labor. Like, I guarantee that if you put union officials in the Department of Labor, liberals and conservatives alike in politics, in office, would flip a shit. You're not supposed to actually do the thing that this philosophical framework dictates that you do. You're not supposed to make life better. You're supposed to let everything stagnate infinitely. Anywho. There's a lot of commentaries stemming from one ICE shooting, but yeah. It's one of the many representatives of institutional rot in America. What do you think is going to happen if that guy gets proven innocent? Which guy? One that got kidnapped? You mean Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela? I don't know. Probably nothing, because nothing ever happens. Probably nothing, honestly. And the reason I say that is because, like, sure, people are going to be upset. They're going to be like, wow, this administration sure is stupid. But a meaningful response has to come with some sort of power behind it. And the only, and the people who have the power to conduct that kind of response to the administration for something like this are the international community, which is disunited at the best times. I've already talked about that. They're obviously not going to respond. And the Democrats, who have already said in various statements that have been released by Democratic leadership that they don't actually object to the government having just unilaterally kidnapped Maduro and brought him to the U.S. They're fine with that part. They don't care. They're paid opposition, you know? it's kind of crazy too. Like with all the things happening right now with the Republican administration in charge of the government and that sort of stuff, Democrats are a complete not like increasingly I've noticed Democrats are a complete non-factor in politics. They are a complete non-participant. When the fuck do you ever hear about the Democratic Party doing anything? Legitimately, I think the most notable thing that had ever like come out of the Democratic Party in an affirmative sense that wasn't like a statement reacting to the Republicans by saying, oh, well, they didn't do it as good as we would have, right? Was actually Mark Warner making that video and proposing that bill about housing. And that bill was shit from a butt. And it got killed immediately. That's like the only thing that the Democratic Party has done aside from we're going to issue a strongly worded letter where we don't actually disagree with whatever the Trump administration did. We just say that like we would have done it better. I'm telling you, man, if ever there was an indication of paid opposition, that's it. Rich are good at stocking everything in their favor. I mean, yeah, they're wealthy. That as a class, they control and marshal all the resources of society. Uh, now the other part of the stream that I was thinking of. Wait, actually, hold on. Well, if it isn't another distraction from the Epstein files. Thank you, More Perfect Union, one of my favorite reporting outlets. I'm not holding my breath for this, but here on Truth Social, Donald Trump just said, I'm immediately taking steps to ban large institutional investors from buying more single family homes, and I will be calling on Congress to codify it. I think this is a good sign. Doesn't mean that anything's actually going to happen from the Trump administration. No, obviously not. They lie as easily as I breathe. I just talked about this. You know, I will be calling on Congress to codify it. Congress will probably shoot it down. This only applies to single-family homes. One of the biggest problems is the lack of multifamily housing and apartments and such. And investment firms are like buying all those up. And, like there's slumlords running these giant apartment complexes into the ground, which makes it like fundamentally unlivable. The reason I wanted to highlight this is that this is a virtue signal that is very uncharacteristic of the Trump administration. It is a hollow virtue signal. Nothing is going to happen from this directly. But what this speaks to, I think, being also an obvious attempt to distract from the Epstein files, than the fact that Trump is named everywhere in that shit and raped little girls, is that this is a big and a ubiquitous enough issue that they view it as a potential bonus to virtue signal in this way, right? Like nobody, like the political will and the political sentiment on housing is so ubiquitous, even the Trump administration has to recognize, okay, if we want to score brownie points here, we should like virtue signal that we're going to crack down on these big investment firms or whatever, And I think this actually does, in some way, it contributes to eventually the housing crisis getting solved, because it indicates that even the most captured government in history has been dragged to the point where they're saying, okay, fine, we're looking into banning large institutional investors from buying houses, right? Like they have to say, fine, you know, we'll talk about it a little bit. Does that make sense? It's kind of like how one of the sure shot signs that racism has gotten better in America is that even right wingers won't just say the N word. You know, they'll be racist as fuck. But there is such a thing as a bridge too far. Same thing with like homophobia, where at least for quite a while after Obergefell v. Hodges, the right wing, who has never stopped being vehemently anti gay, had to pay some degree of lip service to gay marriage being allowed. So that's like nice, I guess. I don't know. Kind of hard to say for sure, but like it's one of those things where sometimes you feel like you can see the Matrix just a little bit. Where it's like, you know, they're probably scrambling behind the scenes like we are drowning in negative PR, even with like us controlling all the news media outlets and the Democrats doing whatever we want them to. Like, people still do not like us. We're having a lot of trouble getting people to sort of back off the administration and whatever, which is making it harder for us to do what we want to do. And they were like, okay, what if we pitch something like this? You know, does that make sense? Let me take a breather for a second. Ooh. Mm. Now I want to take a look at something that I had mentioned on another stream. So, to introduce this, what I'm about to do here, it is going to be React content, which I know everybody loves. Everybody loves them some React content. I have mentioned that one of the fighting game YouTubers I watch is Brian F. Very cool dude. And a while ago, several months ago, I attempted to talk about something that I think is very important, but my thoughts were very poorly organized because I was largely just riffing based off of memory while playing Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. I don't think my thoughts were presented particularly well. So I want to go over this in a format that would help me better present my thoughts. And when I say go over this, I mean this video. This was last year, right about the time that Dune Part 2 had come out, and everybody was loving it. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't for everybody. And I guess Brian F is one of those people who the movie did not resonate for, and chat really got on his case for this. And I wanted to use this to talk about the importance of contentious media takes, genuinely felt, not contrarian media takes, but like media takes that are a little bit different, but still well informed, right? So, like, I think it kind of does a disservice to call it a media hot take, but I want to go through this video of Brian F talking about Dune 2 in a somewhat disagreeable fashion and just talk about it.
Through 2.5 hours, you promised me a great movie. You promised me a great movie for 2.5 hours, and then in the last 10 seconds, you said psych. I see Katie.
Nice. Actually, I don't remember if he's talking about Dune Part 1 or Part 2. But
He tweeting only
let's
3
continue.
his time. Yeah, he's hooked. He's addicted. I get it. I mean, I just went on a real deep spree today and yesterday over the Dune movies. I've been mostly good at kind of keeping just a brand account for a little.
Oh, okay. So he is talking about both of them, Part 1 and Part 2.
A while. You know, I have often engaged in my fair share of Twitter throwdowns. and I've been on a pretty good streak for a long time until I saw Wicked, and I had to get it off my chest how much I hated Dune 1. And people are trying to accuse me of like I'm selling out because I got Twitter Blue now for a month. That I'm trying.
Okay, already the dumb shit from not from Brian F. from people criticizing Brian F. has started. Right away, he said like, I fucking hated Dune 1, Dune Part 1. Very strange from my perspective because I thought it was a really good movie, but like, okay, sure. Nothing necessarily incorrect said there. I believe him that that's how he feels about Dune 1. And then from that, people are being like, oh, you sold out? Like, I feel like that he's going to get into it a little bit, but that immediate reaction, I think, speaks to a lack of a lack of like engagement with any sort of opinion. You know, yeah, people are very attached to their media takes, and don't get me wrong, there is valid reason for that because, as I talked about with way back in the day when I was reacting to MatPat. Talking about, of all things, the process of alienation in a Marxian sense, not in as many words, through the internet, media takes and media consumption as a social phenomenon is one of the things that makes society, well, more sociable. Everybody saw Dune. Everybody saw Dune Part 2, right? It's like a cultural phenomenon. Remember Barbenheimer and all that sort of shit. You know, it's something to talk about, to bond over and to engage with society about, right? You know, it's a social experience. So it's like there's a little bit more context to those media takes and stuff, but I feel like it's an incorrect reaction to hear somebody saying, I fucking hated that movie that's widely considered to be good, and for your question to not just be like, what? Why? You know, to instead be, oh, you just don't know what you're talking about? Like, he told you how he feels about the movie, you know? Like, that's an opinionated statement. It is the truth. It is a subjective truth. The statement, I fucking hated that movie, is like, that's a true statement. That's how this person feels. Nothing was said about whether the movie was good or bad yet. Anyways, don't want to get too far into it just yet, but this is going to center around the importance of critical thinking and understanding disagreeable media takes.
Trying to engagement bait? No, dude. I watched Dune 1.
And by disagreeable, I mean partly in the way that they're phrased, because Brian F. is a content creator and he understands probably a lot better than I do that you have to be kind of spiteful towards your chat and like you got to understand that chat is a bunch of gremlins that you simultaneously love and hate at the same time, which also applies to you. I hate you guys, but I also love you guys. So the framing being disagreeable, but then also disagreeable just in the sense that it is a very uncommon opinion to have. Therefore, it like already primed for many people to disagree with it.
Like a year ago, 6 months ago, something like that, and I was so pissed. And then Wicked just confirmed my right to be pissed.
Ouch! I'm sorry, Gotron, to hear that.
I didn't read the novel.
That's fine. I didn't either.
And the thing is, it's so much wasted potential. Dune 1 was great, and then the fucking movie just stopped. I was so annoyed when it ended. I was like, what the fuck? The movie's not over. And so the thing about Wicked is, the reason I'm even drawing this weird-ass comparison is we saw Wicked yesterday. And
Wicked? What is Wicked? Oh, Wicked 2024. Okay, so, okay, low key, I actually have a soft spot for this kind of movie where it's like, oh, this classic fairy tale story or whatever, but actually they're not really the villain, they're just like a grouchy lesbian or something like that. Not exactly the archetype, but I feel like you get what I'm reaching for. Yeah, reimagining of The Wizard of Oz. Okay. At least it's not a remake. It's a reimagining. Kind of like how, what was it, Maleficent? was one of those live action remake slash reimaginings, but it was actually like pretty well received because it significantly changed what the movie was and what it was about. So it kind of like justifies its own existence by being different, being its own thing, and also by featuring lesbians. Many such cases. I haven't seen it though. I've neither of those movies that I mentioned. I've watched neither of them, and I don't really intend to. So he's comparing Dune to Wicked here. Uh,
The reason I'm even drawing this weird ass comparison is we saw Wicked yesterday, and then I didn't know also it was going to be the plan was to have it be a trilogy or have sequels or anything like that. And then I found out, okay, actually it's a trilogy, and I was already like, oh my god, here we go again, trying to milk a fucking franchise for all it's worth. Wicked does not need to have more than one part, and then it's probably going to be another.
oh, Wicked was supposed to be a trilogy. I didn't know that. I thought he was talking about Dune here, but no, yeah. Everything's a trilogy now. To be fair to Dune specifically, there are a lot of Dune novels, so it makes sense that they would want to adapt more of the source material. But I do agree with Brian F. I kind of fucking hate that like everything has to be a series or a franchise or whatever. That is one of the ways in which I actually do think capitalism has legitimately ruined the art of filmmaking. Not to say the filmmaking industry, because that was largely developed under capitalism and it was subject to pretty similar flaws throughout, but I feel like I yearn for a film that's just like an original idea and is capable of being self-contained as its own thing. I feel like that's part of the reason I enjoyed Sinners so much. Open and shut story. The film was amazing, but it didn't like sequel bait or nothing. And I feel like if you're making like Wicked being a reimagining of the Wonderful Wizard of Oz, I don't think that needs a sequel. It's like there's a lot of movies that don't need a sequel, but they get one anyways. Again, because of like the marketing rationale that we need more money. I tend to agree. That's kind of dumb.
Another fucking Dune situation where Dune obviously needed multiple movies, but they just cut it short, and then it's like you're required to see Dune 2 to even get any value out of Dune 1. I was so prepared for this shit to just piss me off again, because I hate that. You can have trilogies and sequels, but they need to be complete. Every individual movie needs to finish and have a complete movie in and on its own and have some value on its own.
Okay, I'm going to hear.
It doesn't have to be the greatest movie of all time, but it has to have some value on its own.
I'm going to disagree with Brian F. here, but I do completely understand and think that he's making a reasonable argument, right? Dune Part 1 ended on a cliffhanger. That is to say, like, it ended without, like, a real conclusion to a lot of the things that had been set up. And I guess, and that's one of the ways in which I guess it's not for everybody. Some people really don't like cliffhanger endings. I guess Brian F. is one of those people, right? And that's valid, and the thing too is that it's a combination that you don't often see, that Dune is a political thriller. It's like a political epic, very long movie, a very immersive movie. And it does kind of end abruptly on a cliffhanger, right? Dune Part 1. Part 1 and Part 2, both pretty long movies from what I remember. So, like, you have in combination, it's very long, and the type of movie it is lends to very long storytelling, very epic storytelling. And it ends in a way that's not very typical of that format of movie. So it can feel very thematically jarring, I think. I still enjoyed Dune Part 1 because I think when the movie came out, it was still like Dune Part 1. So I kind of went in understanding that there's going to be a Part 2. And I was kind of expecting the cliffhanger. But to be sure, it's not like there was any sort of there definitely wasn't a lot of closure in the conclusion of Dune Part 1. To the extent that it really had a conclusion, because being part of a series, it kind of like ends with the second act, but it kind of ends at the start or in the middle of the second act. The second act isn't over. You don't even necessarily get a sense of what the third act is going to be, like what the I think you get what I'm saying, right? There's perfectly valid reasons to feel this way. I don't feel the same way. I kind of,
Does that have to be
I disagree with the sentiment that Dune 1 has no value on its own. I think there's a lot of world building in Dune 1 that I really liked. My political brain went immediately to digging in and analyzing the sort of feudal structure that this world had, and the sort of power struggle that was going on for the role of emperor, and how much it actually resembled the Japanese political system, where the emperor was in a way kind of like not as powerful as the feudal nobility that operated nominally underneath them, you know. That's the kind of stuff I enjoyed a lot. And I also there is also a little bit of like my populist brain that really enjoys the movie, because it's like there's all this intrigue and power struggles and whatever going on inside this feudal structure of nobility. And then like even the most well-intentioned feudal aristocracy goes to this supposedly backwater planet, and the indigenous people there are like, yeah, we don't want you and your extractive industries here, type shit. Also, I had been slightly spoiled on how Paul Atreides was actually like Space Gaddafi or something like that. So that I feel like that may have also colored my perception of the movie. That I had been a little bit exposed to the cultural zeitgeist of that movie before I had seen the movie, right? That could be shaping my opinion here in part. But all that to say, I understand and agree with some of the smaller points that Brian F. is making. I can see the rationale, I understand the rationale, but I disagree that the movie has no value. But I'm not gonna like try to refute his opinion, because I think it's genuinely held. And like there's as much reason, depending on how you engage with movies and what you watch movies for, there's like as much reason to feel that way as there is to feel the way I feel about it, right? But again, it's important to engage with takes on that level, and like chat isn't doing that.
value on its own,
Because it's Twitch chat.
right? Star Wars, each movie stands on its own. You watch Lord of the
That is true.
Rings, each movie stands on its own. Dune 1 is pointless
I don't remember Lord of the Rings well enough to remember if that's true, but I think that's true.
without Dune 2. It is totally
That is a valid point, and something that I will wholeheartedly agree with. For me, that didn't necessarily drag down my enjoyment of the movie, partly because the way that I watch movies and stuff is sort of like I kind of don't even go into a part 1 if I know there's going to be a part 2. I usually wait for the part 2 or whatever to be released before even going into the part 1. I've talked about this with the way I watch certain TV series and anime series, is that I actually will refrain from watching a series if it isn't finished, right? Because I want to be able to take it at my own pace, and I don't want to be strung along week after week, month after month, right? Because then I'm subject to the sunk cost fallacy, where I'm watching something that I don't enjoy anymore just because I want to see closure to the story. You know, it's how I watched JoJo's. When part 6 came out, I didn't watch each episode as it released. I waited for all the episodes to release. Then I watched part 6. It's how I intend to watch JoJo's part 7. It's how I watched, I believe, Andor? No. Andor was one of the exceptions I made. I actually watched Andor season 1 like as the episodes came out, because I knew that they were going to end it, like it had a definitive end point that they were building towards. It's like it couldn't drag on forever. I did watch Mandalorian with this format in mind, where I like waited for, particularly into season 2 and 3, I waited for a lot of the episodes to be out before I even started watching. Number 6 came out in 2 batches. Number 6? I don't know what you're referring to. But nonetheless, again, it's like a take that's informed by the way that Came out 2 batches, JoJo? Yeah, okay, yeah. So then I think, if I'm remembering right, I think I watched it when like the first batch of episodes came out and then the second batch of episodes, because it was like, okay, first batch of episodes is out. I'll watch this batch at a certain pace. I didn't binge it, but it was like one per day. But yeah, you get me. That's kind of how I like to watch media. So this critique doesn't usually hit me as hard because I just watch media differently. But for somebody who watches media like just as it comes out, very real thing. Yeah. Because of fans' complaints, they brought it back to weekly for 7 when it comes out. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if like one format is better than the other. Although I guess for JoJo's it kind of makes sense because the JoJo's manga is already like well beyond part 7, right? So it kind of makes sense for them to take a certain amount of time to actually finish all the episodes beforehand and then just release them as a steady stream of stuff, right? Yeah, we're talking a little bit about JoJo in the light of a contentious media take from one of my favorite FGC YouTubers, Mr. Brian_F. He's talking about how he really doesn't like Dune Part 1 particularly. And I'm emphasizing how it's like important to understand and engage with the point he's making. Even if you disagree with it, you have to understand it.
It's fucking pointless.
Which Twitch chat doesn't. Mostly talking about the fact he doesn't like trilogies everywhere. Well, that's a component part of his argument about why he doesn't like Dune, because Dune is like part of this series, and it touched that kind of nerve when he was watching a movie where it's like he feels like the movie has, he said no value, but certainly for any range of movies, probably a lot less value on its own, because it's like you can't really watch it as its own thing, you know? Which is a critique I share of a lot of movies. Dune being one, but again, that's like a much lighter critique from me than it would be from Brian F. because of the different things that we care about more or less with movies and how we watch movies and shows and stuff.
There is no point to Dune 1 if you don't watch Dune 2. I was so pissed when I finished Dune 1 and I was like, oh, for me, I agreed to spend...
Okay, this I agree with a little bit more, that, oh, there's no point to Dune 1 if you don't watch Dune 2. I think that's different from saying Dune 1 has no value without Dune 2. But definitely there's no point. There's no like thing that it really builds towards, because all that resolution and stuff, you don't get any of the resolution in Dune Part 1. You just don't. You get a lot of world building. You get the, basically, like I said, to the second act, and then it ends.
Spend 2.5 hours to watch this film to see if I cared about it.
You don't really get
now, for me
payoff.
to even get what I got, what I was expecting to get it out of 2.5 hours, you have to watch the second one. There's no break point between the two.
Spine says why a lot of people don't want to approach One Piece. Yeah, and I don't want to watch One Piece because it's 1,000+ episodes. Part 7 of JoJo has to be good or it's going to be hated beyond belief, mostly because it's the #1 most popular and highest ranked manga. I assume that if the animation is good, then the show is going to be good, because it's not hard to make JoJo's good, because Part 7 is being adapted from existing manga source material. If they animate it well, I think they're fine. I don't think they have much to worry about. I mean, all the other parts of JoJo's have been bangers. You know?
There's no proper ending. The movie should have ended like 30 minutes earlier. When is it? When they're flying through the storm with the bird thing, through the desert storm, the mom and the son, and they happen to survive? That should have been the end. Why did he go and kill a guy, and then they type his body, and they're like, well, let's keep walking in the desert. And then they're like, oh, there's a worm over there. And then the movie ends, and I'm like, this was not a movie. This, like...
I do kind of like... I'll agree partly that might have been like for the sake of movie making, for like audience, a movie going audience, that might have been a better point to end it. It's like more cinematic to be like, okay, so they've just secured escape from the captors, right? And they're flying now. And then maybe that's like, you make Dune 1 a little bit shorter, Dune 2 a little bit longer, just with Dune Part 2, you open on the bit that like happens between then and the ending, if that makes sense. Pacing has to be good too. If they miss panels or simplify to animate less, they're going to be killed. Yeah, for sure. JoJo's is such a important series to the international anime culture, and also especially to Japanese anime culture, that I really think they can't afford to cut any corners. Port 7 was coming out, wasn't called JoJo's, really. I wonder why they would do that. Imagine if JoJo gets treated like One Punch Man season 3. I would well, I'm not allowed to say what I would do as per Twitch TOS. Let your imagination run wild, I guess. Yeah, like again, it's like similar problems with the Dune Part 1 ending, but it didn't like ruin the experience for me, where I guess it did for Brian F. And I can understand why. You know, it's like a much more awkward cliffhanger.
Why did this keep going? You should have ended it 30 minutes ago, or keep going for another 30 minutes. What is happening here? We're having too much fun right now. The thing is, I can't
No, keep having fun, dude.
Spoil you the ending of Dune 1 because there is no ending to Dune 1.
That, you know, that is kind of true. That is actually like, if you spoiled the ending for Dune 1, you wouldn't realize that you had been spoiled on anything. Because in order for you to get a spoiler for Dune Part 1, if you wanted to spoil the ending, you would have to include stuff that happens before the ending, right? You would have to say, oh, and the reason that they're just screwing around in the desert is because of such and such that happened before, right? Like remember the Han Solo dies meme? That, like, mentioning that in and of itself is a spoiler. You know, it is a spoiler for Star Wars The Force Awakens, right? It was a big meme. But if you take the like a similar context and say like, oh yeah, Paul and his mom are walking around in the desert or whatever, a similar like short burst of information, that's not really a spoiler. You would have to include a lot more leading context for there to be a spoiler there, which I think constructs the critique well, that like the ending wasn't great. But again, it's like, it's a matter of perspective. I don't think it ruined the movie. But Brian F. does. And that's like it's not like something I can debunk or argue against, because it has to do with whether we enjoyed the movie or not, which is a matter of feeling, kind of. Like, not entirely. I mean, you get me so far.
Spoilers, you will be left having to watch Dune 2. There's no fucking ending to Dune 1. These
That's definitely true.
were legitimate gripes I had. I'm not trying to Twitter bait. I just cannot stand.
I feel like drama should be focused on how crazy chat reacts. Yeah, you know what? Actually, the people in chat. Okay, I want to highlight some of the crazier chat reactions, but right now none of the reactions are particularly crazy. It's still like they're not necessarily engaging with that. I guess because Twitch chat is short form enough that it's kind of hard to do that. So it incentivizes you to have a much lower common denominator of IQ when sending chat messages. You know, like, people literally make fun of you for essay posting when sometimes that's the only way to get a more nuanced thought across.
The fucking process and ending of Dune 1. I cannot stand it. I feel pissed off as a consumer. Like, it's just not good. And I know a lot of people are saying like, oh, well, they told us it's going to be part 1, part 2. And I'm like, listen, brother, that still doesn't make it good. It's
Do not send the essay for Twitch can be scroll past faster than a second. Yeah, that's partly like why that happens too. There's the rare exception, like when Hassan, when Hassan finds something that he wants to like pick apart, he'll highlight a certain essay post, but the vast majority of essay posts are just going to be treated like that. Or worse yet, you get banned or muted by like an auto mod for like posting something too long that takes up too much space and stuff, you know?
Still bad. Like, oh, the director, he was forced to by the evil studio's hand. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm not friends with the director. I guess I sympathize with his creative vision succumbing to the pressures of economic forces out of its control. That sucks. But at the end of how the sausage is made, the movie was ruined by not concluding. Dune 1 had amazing setting, great acting, great set design. The plot was picking up, things were looking cool, I was interested, and then they just shit on it at the end.
Yeah, a lot of that comes down to like, again, like I said, how I watch movies versus how Brian F watches movies versus how like Twitch chat watches movies. And for Twitch chat, not like the fact that Brian F mentioned like, I sympathize with all this stuff, but that doesn't change how I feel about the movie. It shows that he's like clearly thinking about this in a more comprehensive way than Twitch chat is, because a lot of people will only mention that. It's kind of like, because of the social phenomenon of media consumption as like a social thing, and also because the average person has a brain composed largely of small rocks, it's sort of like they're not necessarily arguing the thing that they're arguing. They're arguing you should like the movie, but they're running to each sort of soundbite consecutively as a defense. They're not necessarily thinking that much about the things that they're arguing. Does that make sense? Anime solve this problem. Don't you just have each movie be an arc? Yeah, kind of. For longer running anime, it works again for like people that are already invested in anime, but for me, it's like hard to get invested in anime if that's a thing. But yes, there is a version of this. It's possible to have like arcs within a story. It's possible to have stories within a story that can have their own beginning, middle, and end, that can come to a resolution and have their own trials and tribulations along the way. That is how anime approaches this in large part, for at least for longer ones that have space for multiple arcs. Arguing with a large enough Twitch chat is like talking to a baboon with a keyboard that understands English. Yeah, if anything, right? My biggest critique of Brian F's opinion here is that he feels it appropriate to argue it in an intellectual capacity with his Twitch chat, which again isn't that big of a critique because he's also a content creator and disagreeable media takes make for great content, you know? But yes, I feel like he should know. He probably does, but he should know that he's arguing with a brick wall. But I think he even said at the beginning of this that he just wanted to like get some thoughts off of his chest here. So here, this is an example of what I'm talking about. This chatter is saying, Gotron, you said to highlight the reacts from chat as part of this drama, as part of like the drama for people to engage with and really salivate over. This person says, you gotta view it as different than other movies and trilogies, man. This is everything wrong with how Twitch chat is engaging with the topic. You gotta. Brian F doesn't have to do anything, bro. Who are you to him? Who are you? Who the fuck cares, right? You're like this sentiment. It's refuting a feeling. It like literally, it's you're trying to this person. Like somebody has offered this is kind of insulting to Brian F, but it's like it insists upon itself, and you're trying to debunk them. It's like I didn't feel it. I really didn't like the ending. I didn't like how it blah 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 blah. I didn't like the cliffhanger. I didn't like that it didn't feel like it had an ending, right? And this person's trying to refute how you feel about a movie. It's like, what the fuck? Sit down, bro. To say nothing of the fact that it's a really dumb argument that, like, oh, Dune is so different from other movies and trilogies. No, it isn't. Not really. It's a political thriller, which is not super common, but Star Wars is a political thriller. I also disagree with the implication that in order to enjoy Dune, you have to view it as fundamentally different from other kinds of shows and movies. You don't. This chatter is just dumb. It's the epitome, I think, of disengaging from the issue in order to defend a prior bias that you have that a parasocial personality is like not conforming to, you know? Yeah, Twitch chat is just the monkey bot farm from Superman that Lex Luthor has in the fucking pocket dimension CIA black site. I don't think anyone's arguing that's different from other trilogies. Yeah, that's again another flaw in in this in the brain of this particular Twitch chatter that I intend to pick apart as like representative of the sort of sentiment that frequently gets aired on Twitch chat because of the Twitch chat's bias towards a low common denominator when it grows bigger and bigger. You know, like you don't have to view it as fundamentally different to enjoy it. It isn't fundamentally different. Nobody's arguing that it's fundamentally different from other movies and shows, except for you, because that's how you perceive you can best convince the streamer guy that actually he should have liked it and his opinion, his feeling is wrong. Yeah, monkey brain.
Great acting. I don't know about that one. Well, I had no complaints, is what I should say. I was enjoying it. I was enjoying it until the fact.
Yeah, and he's saying the ending ruined it. He even said like I enjoyed the rest of the movie, right? It like seemed like it was building towards something, acting, cinematography, set design, etc. You know,
That they didn't finish the Dune one. It should have been a fucking mini series. It should have been hour-long episodes, and it should.
It's funny he should say that because there is actually a Dune miniseries. I forget if it was the 1980s one or like the year 2000 or early 2000s one, but there is a Dune miniseries. This was actually I think this is the first movie adaptation to take this format. I think there was a movie for Dune in 1984 that was like a cult classic, but not received super well at the time. And then in the 2000s, there was a miniseries. And then now, in the big 2026, we have 2 Dune movies as part of a series of movies. But I don't know, maybe it would have fared better in that format. Certainly for Brian F., I guess maybe it would have, but you know. Yeah, this is certified democracy basically means government of the people, by the people, for the people. But the people are retarded. It's true. And I think that was actually like that guy. I don't think that guy is anti-democracy. I think that guy was pro-democracy, right? Yes, but yes, nonetheless, this is the people are retarded moment. For me, for some movies, by the time the sequel comes out, I forget everything about the first movie. That's part of why I watch movies the way I do. I'll wait for the sequels to come out because I recognize for like, even if there are self-contained stories, it's part of a bigger story, and I want to be able to take in the full bigger story without having to do the legwork of remembering the story between the time that like one and the other comes out. That's part of the reason that I do that. In addition to the whole like, I don't want to get caught in just like watching something that never ends. Trans woman that follows politics, by the way. Like, oh, I don't want to get caught watching something that never ends, and here I am. I'm a like politics live streamer. Whatever. These are the worst in continuing stories because they take the longest to come out. I disagree. I don't think they're inherently worse at that. It is, but it is a challenge. That is a challenge that you face if you're making movies, plural, to encompass a broader story.
Should have been like 5 or 6 episodes for that first season of Dune 1 and Dune 2. Would it have made more money as a miniseries? I don't know. I'm just saying for the obvious product they were making, it would have been better suited.
Again, I think this person, more credit to this Twitch chatter that they're trying to like engage a little bit, but I still think they're coming at it from the wrong angles. Like the question isn't whether it would make more money, it's whether it would be better. You know? If it, and it also speaks to, I don't think this is the same person that made this critique, but again, I'm treating Twitch chat as the monkey brain. They are all collectively, simultaneously, one monolithic monkey typing on a keyboard, and also thousands of monkeys typing on their keyboards. But they all share the same brain. Thank you. Where like people argued, oh well, you know, fuck, I forgot what I was gonna say because I got immersed in the whole calling Twitch chat dumb idiots. Haha. God dang it, I'm too funny. Sorry. Let's see, would it make more money? Making more money versus being better. I'm trying to walk myself through my train of thought again. God damn it. I missed the boarding at the station of my train of thought. Again, they like, I guess they are trying to engage, but they're missing the point where it's a question of whether it would be better, according to, you know, Brian F. and his opinions about, you know, media, what makes good media, that sort of thing, rather than what would make more money. And it also flies in the face of that other argument where they said like, oh, well, the studios wanted it to be this way. So like, oh, there was a lot of studio constraints, so they had to end it where they ended it. You know, both arguments having to do with marketability and money that simultaneously contradict each other, because one of them is sort of like accepting that, oh, you know, movies are very profitable, which they are. They are extremely inefficient, increasingly so lately because of all the fucking middle managers and like studio executives and whatever that get involved in the process just to consume more resources. But yeah. I don't know. I might want to come back to that if I remember more completely what I was talking about, but
Suited as a miniseries for me as a viewer, not for the studio. I'm sure
I do appreciate though, again, to like take a little bit of the heat off of chat. People are asking like, oh, so if this is how you feel about Dune 1, did you watch Dune 2? What did you think of it? You know, did you just decide not to watch it?
they're making mad money and they're doing great. So my complaints don't matter for the bottom line for sure. Wicked was great. I agree. Wicked was pretty good. I actually I enjoyed Wicked.
Can't speak to this because I haven't seen Wicked, so.
Should Wicked have been one movie? I think Wicked should have been one movie. I do think that. But I felt like there was a complete character arc and a proper conclusion to Wicked 1. You could watch Wicked 1 on your own, on its own, and get something out of the experience. The Hobbit should have been one movie? Absolutely. That's the biggest offender.
Okay, so he's connecting it. That's good. I don't remember. I guess
And
like
the crazy
I guess this is a pretty obvious thing to point out, but like he's consistent.
thing is, after Dune 1, I literally Googled what the ending of Dune 1 was because I was legitimately confused if I had like a pirated copy that had a bootleg or something was wrong. I'm not even joking to you. I fucking Googled it. And then I got a lot of Reddit threads where people are like, what's with the ending of Dune 1? And they're like, yeah, we don't know. And I had to confirm. I was like, is this the ending? And I saw a lot of people on the internet discussing the same thing I'm saying. So me tweeting about this, I legit did not
Dang.
expect this to be controversial when I tweeted this on Twitter. I thought
I think for how well received Dune 1 was, he kind of should have expected that. But again, it's like you can see where he's coming from. Where he's like, is anybody else like really confused? And it turns out there were a lot of other people. There was like, he's like, okay, so I'm not alone in thinking this, but
That was going to be the norm. I thought every human being with eyeballs would watch Dune 1 and be like, why did this movie suck?
Streamer guy behavior being hyperbolic a little bit. I actually didn't feel this way. Again, because I like knew how like Dune 1, Dune 2 were going to be going in, so I kind of expected there to be some kind of cliffhanger. It was a little bit abrupt and anticlimactic, the ending, but it didn't leave me so confused that I was like, what, that's it? There's not more movie. Because I knew there was going to be more movie. It was just like, you know, like that was part one.
Like you through 2.5 hours, you promised me a great movie. You promised me a great movie for 2.5 hours, and then in the last 10 seconds, you said, psych. This movie sucks ass.
This is a difference probably just between like how Dune is just glorified Warhammer 40K. All of those things are just politics, but in a pretend setting instead of the real world. Maybe he doesn't like the fact that he has to pay for the conclusion. No, I think he just doesn't like the fact that that movie can't stand on its own. I mean, he said as much. He said, like, he feels like that, you know. Again, I feel like it, you know, the last 10 seconds, it is extremely difficult to ruin a 2.5 hour movie in the last 30 minutes, the last 10 seconds for me. Certainly possible. And Dune 1 did not do that for me at least. Like, an anticlimactic ending didn't in any way like invalidate the rest of the experience that I had watching Dune Part 1. And it didn't really have anything to do with the fact that like, oh, I have to go watch Dune Part 2 to get the full story, right? Because like everybody knows, Brian F. even acknowledged, he knew there was going to be a Part 2 because there were the novels. He knew that there was going to be a Part 2 when he watched Part 1. It's just a matter of like how blindsiding personally it was to have like a very anticlimactic kind of awkward ending, which I will agree to. I think the ending was a bit awkward, a bit anticlimactic, but that didn't like take me out of the movie. It didn't make me feel like the movie was not worth it. How old is this drama? This is from January of last year. This is 1 year old. Here's my comment that I felt really funny for posting about Dune 2 hung dudes at the same time. Many such cases. I just wanted to talk about this because it's been on my mind that like critical thinking is a very comprehensive thing. It's like very all encompassing and whatever. This is when Dune Part 2 had just come out, I think. And like, you know, again, I had like talked about it before, but my thoughts weren't particularly well organized on the matter. So I figured I would let the video kind of serve as a guideline for me to talk about what I wanted to talk about, like, as it came up.
I was rug pulled. I was bamboozled. I could not believe my fucking eyes. And then I was like, fine, I guess I'll watch Dune 2. And it was good. But at that point, I was already pissed. You know what I mean? This is going too far. It's not going too far. I don't think you understand how like fundamentally flawed the structure of the movie is based on the fact that it has no conclusion. I'd rather a movie finish and be kind of bad than be really great and not finish. You know, another movie, and you know, people are trying to.
And so there we go. It's like it's a matter of preference. So he should have waited. Maybe I think that the movie just maybe wasn't for him. Maybe. I don't know. Again, it's like a difference of how you approach media. I might have not enjoyed Dune Part 1 as much if Dune Part 2 wasn't like already out. I think there's something to that. Yeah. Like I can't necessarily comprehend feeling this way because I don't feel this way about Dune Part 1 and Part 2. Like I'm not in Brian F's head. I don't know what he's feeling, but like I'm not going to refute the reasons for him feeling this way. Like I disagree that it's such a fundamental flaw of the movie structure. It is a flaw for sure, but I think it just, again, because of the product of how we consume media differently depending on tastes, it's like how big of a flaw we perceive it as is different. How it affects our movie experience is different. Literally, it is actually the customer is always right kind of moment. You would think people would know that if they're defaulting to arguments about marketing, movie-going audiences, what the studios want, things like that. Remember, the full saying of the customer is always right is the customer is always right in matters of taste. And Brian F. is expressing his taste in the context of this movie that ain't it, Chief, you know? And it's not, again, it's not like, I made the joke earlier. It's not like he's just saying it insists upon itself, right? He's actually like explaining the how it really does feel like, oh, to him, it felt like a rug pull and that sort of shit. Again, the important thing is that you can engage with it and understand it, even if you still disagree with it, and that you don't try to refute it, because watching a movie and or consuming media, engaging with media is a process driven both by intellectual processes and feelings, emotional processes. And so, like, don't fucking refute how somebody feels about something, because that's subjective, and like nobody's necessarily wrong for feeling a certain way about a movie, you know? Unless they feel immense hatred because there was like a black person in the movie, then they are wrong. But like, you know what I mean?
Tell me on Twitter, like, oh, what, you're scared of having to think about a narrative? There's nothing to think about. The whole point of the movie is not the pointlessness of life and that shit just ends abruptly. That's not the thematic elements they're trying to get you to comprehend with the movie, right?
Again, this is another, like, he's getting kind of frustrated here, but like, we came at the exact conclusion. It only took us an hour. I mean, I'm a yapper, right? I live stream. That's what I do. Again, another perfectly comprehensible argument, even though he's getting a little bit frustrated here, that like the ending didn't have much to do with the overarching point of the movie. Again, like it's a different version of saying there was like no resolution, but like, yeah, I totally get it. This, ending abruptly like that doesn't necessarily have much to do with like the themes of the movie. I might actually disagree a little bit with that, but I can see the argument again, because they're just screwing around in the desert, and like the movie was about the extractive nature of empire and these power struggles and this feudal structure that go on behind the scenes, and how like it results in people acting very human in the moment. Like when you are put in the perspective of the feudal nobility, what they do all seems very human. But then when you're put in the perspective of the very large masses of people that are subject to the consequences of that decision making, it all seems very inhuman, because there's such a perspective shift from one to the other. It's like out of sight, out of mind. Right? And I think there's an element of that in the ending, in that, oh, well, now Paul and his mom, being left for dead and presumed dead, are part of the latter group, where now they are going to be firsthand subject to the consequences of the actions of people of their class. It's like they've flipped the experience. And that's, that you could consider that a little bit of a preview of that, right? But again, that's the argument that I could make for the ending being thematically relevant, if awkward and abrupt. But it's perfectly, like, again, it's also, there's like a death of the author thing. No one interpretation is necessarily invalid if it's a good faith interpretation, if it's like your authentic read of the situation. I'm not going to say that Brian F's read of the movie at the very end is wrong, because it isn't. People are going to interpret it differently. Again, within reason, though. If somebody says that Dune is not a political movie, they are just wrong.
I watched on the plane, I saw the TV Glow. That movie is kind of bad. It's pretentious, a little overly pretentious sometimes, many times. It drags.
I actually love pretentious shit. I think we all need to be more pretentious immediately. It is a medical necessity. Emergency stat. We must all get 1 million times more pretentious and flex our brain at every possible opportunity. We need to bring back the social standard that being intelligent is good and cool, actually. We need to bring back the aesthetic of intelligentsia to incentivize people to do things that are smart and that make them smarter and more capable of socially expressing intelligence. Somewhat disagree on the like moral implication or whatever, but again, I haven't seen the TV Glow. I think is the name of the movie. So maybe it is pretentious, but my bold take is that's good actually, or something.
For some parts are really corny, some parts are kind of cringe. But that movie, I've been thinking about ever since. I've been thinking about I Saw the TV Glow for a long
Okay, so the movie's called I Saw the TV Glow.
time now. That movie I revisited in my mind, and I think how fucking terrifying it is, and like it gets me to think about the themes and the analogies it displays.
Egg? Yeah, Brian F. Egg moment. Transition can still save her or something. I don't necessarily. Again, I'm not in Brian F's head. Funny joke, not trying to actually suggest that Brian F is trans.
It's like I think about it. And it had a conclusion. It had an open ending. It had an open ending conclusion where you can think about what potentially is happening to the characters, and they didn't spoon feed you what happened. You have to kind of figure out what you want to believe about the ending, right?
Okay. Again, it's like I can't speak to this, but he's talking about how like, oh yeah, this other movie that I think has flaws doesn't have the same flaws, and results in me thinking about it a different way. Pretty straightforward. And here's chat again. I think kind of misunderstanding. Dune 1 is great if you read the book, but I can see for people who didn't read feeling a bit rug pulled. Well, maybe they're understanding it a little bit better, or it's like, yeah, I can see people feeling a bit rug pulled. I don't necessarily think that Dune 1 is only great if you read the book. Again, maybe that's not the implication. Maybe I'm the one misreading this, but yeah. I don't know. This is more normal of a sentiment, I guess, thus far. Maybe I shouldn't have singled it out. The one time a Twitch chatter is like kind of normal.
That's an open-ended movie, and it was a worse movie overall than Dune 1, but because it had a message and it had a conclusion to make you think about what's going on, I think it's such a much more powerful experience. I also just fundamentally disagree that movies are a serialized format. TV and miniseries are serialized. If I see a movie, I expect to have a complete experience. It needs to finish.
This is something that I'm sympathetic to. I don't like serialized media unless it has a defined endpoint. Like, I have heard very positive things about Pluribus, the show Pluribus, new show. Don't spoil it because I may actually intend to watch it someday. However, I saw that season 1 had completed and I intentionally held off on watching it because in my mind was, I don't know how many seasons this is going to go on for. Now, I've heard some semi-confirmed hubbub, rumors, whatever, that it is planned to go for 4 seasons. If that is true, I'm going to wait to confirm whether that's true, and then I will start watching it. But I at the same time, I don't want to jump in to the experience before it's all in front of me to experience at whatever pace I would like to, So I am sympathetic to not wanting movies to be serialized. I think that's like kind of an awkward format to make work. And I certainly think for some movies it doesn't work all too well.
It can have reference and ties into other properties. That's fine. It can have sequels and prequels. That's not a problem. But the movie in and of itself must have value on its own and not require you to watch the second half. That's just I just have a fundamental stance on that. Otherwise, I'm
yeah. And again, for like this, it's a valid stance, right? The point of disagreement is just that I think that Dune 1 does have value. I got value out of it watching it. I didn't necessarily need to watch Dune 2. It did leave me wanting to watch Dune 2, but I don't think I would have needed to watch Dune 2. If you destroyed every copy of Dune Part 2, I would be sitting there thinking, man, I wish I could have seen that, but I wouldn't then think that Dune 1 was like pointless and didn't have any value to be taken from it, right? Again, difference of taste.
You lied to me in the contract. When I sat down to watch the movie, you lied to me. Did you watch Tenet? Yeah, I watched it.
I haven't seen Tenet.
I enjoyed it.
I think, from what little I've seen of Tenet, from what I've seen people talk about, I think it gets unfairly hated on, uh, because some like the one short thing. This spoilers if people haven't seen it. It was like the real Tenet is literally the friend he made along the way, or something like that. I think that makes the movie infinitely better in my brain, just for it being like it was literally about he made a friend, smiley face, and I think that's great. you know. In fact, that has actually made me think that maybe I want to watch Tenet someday.
it, but I would like to watch it again to understand it better. And I also had the same issues as a lot of people with the audio. The audio design was not good. It was hard to hear what the fuck was going on with the dialogue. I think that actually dragged it down.
That is a flaw with many movies, but I've noticed with Christopher Nolan's stuff, sometimes the audio balancing will be quite bad. If you turn the volume up to hear the dialogue, you're gonna get your fucking eardrums blown out when like an action scene starts. But if you have a reasonable volume for the action scene so that your eardrums don't bleed, then you like cannot hear the dialogue.
And I watched it with subtitles too, and it still dragged it down. I mean, it wasn't hard to understand the flow of it, but like I think there might be references and things that I didn't quite catch, which I think might be cool to watch or look at. You know, Tenet was ass. You guys think it was ass? I don't think it was ass, but it wasn't great. But I like the concept of it. I think it's a really interesting concept, at least. Subtitles Kappa Kappa. What does that mean? What's your stance? Why are you having like using the mark of sarcasm in reference to subtitles? What's wrong with subtitles? I think if movies were properly mixed for home viewing experiences, I probably wouldn't need subtitles.
I agree. I actually remember when it became like much more normalized to watch movies with subtitles and watch shows with subtitles. Obviously, I watch anime subbed because I don't fucking speak Japanese, and I kind of prefer the Japanese voice acting to the English voice acting. You know, uh, like, and that's not because like the English voice acting is bad. There's a different reason for that. The what was I saying? Damn it! It was about audio mixing and subtitles. Yeah, it should be perfectly fine and normal and feasible to watch stuff just without subtitles. In fact, that should be the default. Like if you're you're in movie making or whatever, you should try to mix your audio so that people can just listen to it and perfectly make out the dialogue and the sounds and whatnot without having to have subtitles. Like that's pretty normal. But sometime in the 2010s or something that like kind of changed, evidently. Like a lot of people watch shows even in their own native language with subtitles on now. I actually find it kind of distracting because when you think about visual media, movies, TV shows, even just online videos, like whether it's amateur or professional cinematography, the way that the camera moves and looks is designed to capture your visual attention. Your eyes are supposed to be pointed to a certain part of the screen based on shot composition, set design, etc., to try to get you to look at a certain thing, to perceive things in a certain way for the sake of like visual storytelling. Reading the subtitles puts your eye at a different level of focus, at a different point of focus, so that you can't really engage with the movie the way that the cinematography would want you to do, which I feel like compromises the experience, especially if a movie is very visually striking. Legitimate, like I feel like the experience for something like what's a visually strike? I mean, maybe not the greatest example, but it's the one I remember right off the top of my head. Zack Snyder's Justice League, very visually like striking movie. Zack Snyder's a visual director. I feel like the experience, whatever experience you would get from watching that movie, would kind of suffer, or at least be very different if you watched it with subtitles on, because you'd be reading the subtitles instead of necessarily looking at whatever is sort of directing your attention on screen physically. Does that make sense? Again, there's way better movies to to do that example with, but that's just the one that came to mind.
But I don't think you can hear shit on.
Or shit, even Movie I watched most recently: Wake Up Dead Man, Knives Out mystery, Glass Onion, Knives Out mystery. Any movie.
Movies when you watch them at home. Why don't you go and produce a movie, bud? Isn't that a funny thing? Like the way we
Again, another example. I'm here for Brian F picking this guy apart because like, oh, why don't you make one then? What a fucking non-criticism. Like, bro. Nobody actually believes that. They just don't want to hear people criticize the thing that they like, which I think speaks to a weakness of character. Your opinion on something, whether you like it or not, shouldn't be entirely determined on whether the guy next to you also likes it. Like, come on. Like, if I look at somebody's computer that they spent a lot of time on, or like they feel a very particular way about, and say that, you know, that computer's ass or something, they would rightly be offended. But like, the correct argument isn't, well, I'd love to see you make a better one. Like, I can build a computer, but not that. Like, I can't engineer all the parts and whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I'm at the car dealership and I'm driving this car. Like, I really don't like the way this car feels. And the salesman just says, well, I'd love to see you make a better car. Like, what the fuck does that mean? Right? You know what I mean? Like, it's not an argument.
hurl such intense criticism at people, and you know, there's different standards for that because like if we were to talk about like a director that we're so far removed from and the expectations are so high, anything less than perfection and you're trash. Same thing with like professional athletes. Like we shit talk all the pro athletes in whatever sport we're watching when they're objectively better than 99.99999%. They're objectively great at what they do, even if they're not winning in the league that they're performing in. And we call them trash and all that. And it's okay to do that, I guess. It's part of the fun. We like to speak dramatically, but they're objectively good at what they do, right? Like Nolan is an objectively good movie maker. If you're looking at just, I don't know what you want to say. Like he is good at making movies and better than 99.99999999999% of anyone who's ever attempted to put anything on film, right? Because there's just so many people on the planet, he's just better than them. But like, I get it. We all do it. I do it too. We all say that X, Y, or Z is fucking trash. And then, like, that's the thing I think about when people apply that to like Street Fighter. People try to talk about like Street Fighter players being fucking trash and all that. And I'm like, you can't really do the same thing. Like, people like to apply the same metric to like fighting game players because when there's such distance between you and the professional, it's like so easy to talk shit.
That is true. This is a very parasocial thing. And everybody engages with it to different degrees with different things that they enjoy or watch or consume or whatever the fuck. Right. And it is contingent on how socially distant the person is. For example, people are much more willing to do that anonymously over the internet or towards a certain content creator or FGC professional that there's no shot that they ever meet. But you wouldn't be as willing to do that for food that isn't like the greatest food you've ever had at a restaurant because the chef is in the kitchen, just like one room separate from you, right? Does that make sense?
But like with Street Fighter, like that's where like those barriers break down. I think it works because there's so many barriers between us and the people we're criticizing. And like, oh, obviously I'm never gonna be a fucking NBA player, so it's okay if I talk about like how you know, LeBron James' ass, even though objectively greatest basketball player potentially of all time, right? People try to apply that to like Street Fighter, which is not anything. It's this fucking speck. It's an ant pile compared to.
He's kind of diverged from the initial topic, which was how he doesn't like Dune Part 1 and thinks it's a bad movie.
Actual.
Which again, I disagree about the bad movie part. I can't disagree with the he doesn't like it part. He doesn't like it. That's not a thing I can refute. Yeah.
Other fields. And I'm like, dude, you can just pick up the controller whenever you want and play with these people. Like, you are not in the stands, you're on the bleachers. Boot up. We always default to that kind of critique, right? About really shit-talking people. who are actually successful because their success kind of shields them, like their humanity a little bit. Like it doesn't matter if you critique them because they've had so much success. So you can be kind of a dick or like hold impossible standards to them. People also don't know how to talk. No one knows how to differentiate between that is actual trash and I particularly didn't like it for personal reasons. Right, and I engage in that too, right? And that's fun though. Like we do it for fun. It's okay.
Yeah, see there. I mentioned earlier that part of the reason he engages in the like, oh, it sucked, it was trash or whatever, is because that makes for good content. Everybody loves doing that. People who like get like mad at that, people love the experience of getting mad at somebody who you like think has a shit take. That's fun, right? It's a certain kind of recreation. So like, yeah, I guess that's part of the reason that like I set out to like comment on this video and make a video like this if this becomes a video.
To do it, I think. Like for my Dune example, I call Dune ass, and I'm really pissed about it. And it's personal reasons. I personally don't believe a movie should be structured that way, right? And I called it terrible. Dune is not a terrible movie. I just think it really fucking fumbles the bag at the very end, and therefore sours the entire experience, right?
See, there you go. That's the meat of the matter right here, and like, to reach out an olive branch to the Twitch chatters that I spent the entire time insulting. Thank you. I will not stop insulting them, but then you get a little olive branch. People aren't exactly wrong to assume that somebody's saying like, oh, such and such movie was bad when they're talking about how they really didn't like it, because oftentimes they'll include that mixed subjective and objective language. But I think it just takes a little bit of social literacy to sort of read that, like, obviously they're talking about their own taste and feelings about the movie. And you kind of assume for somebody who's like able to engage with the subject at the level that Brian F is engaging with it in, that, you know, everybody generally understands that like art is very subjective and there's not necessarily any such thing as good or bad art, again, within reason. So, you know, it's a matter of like, did you like it? Did you not like it? And why? And, you know, can you articulate why you liked it or didn't like it? And it's perfectly comprehensible why you didn't like Dune Part 1. Insult me harder, mommy. Fuck you. I'm not engaging in this kink. I'm just kidding. I will absolutely engage in this kink. That was a meta insult. That's yes.
It's objectively great at many things, but in my opinion, they blew it. You know, I speak hyperbolically about it because it's fun. Like a lot of the times it's fun. But if I were to see the director of Dune and like I suddenly we're sat down at a bar next to each other and then we're small talking, he goes, "Oh, by the way, did you hear about that movie in the desert?"
Perv caught.
I go, "Oh, Dune? That movie was ass." And he goes, "Oh, yeah, I directed that." I'm like, "Oh, oh, dude, like, you made that? Whoa, wow, did you see it?"
Okay, I don't believe he would actually do this, but it is incredibly funny to think about because some version of this would and has happened to several people on several occasions.
The way when the big spaceship crashed in the desert, you did that? I love the part where they put the body in the bag and then suddenly the credits rolled and I was really confused. Dude, that was sick. Oh, I love the part where I had to boot up Dune 2 in order to conclude the story, and I already budgeted 2.5 hours without going into it, and then I had to finish the story, and it was just okay at the end of it. That was awesome, man. Good job, dude.
Thank you, Brian. Very cool. Recommendations check. I hate, by the way, I hate that YouTube does this kind of recommendation. Now it's like just 3 on the screen there, like theater mode, full screen, not full screen. It's just, I wish it did the, like, I think it was something like 12. There was 4, 4, and 4 recommended videos. Be like, oh, here's a bunch of stuff. You know, got Raffle Heavy, Geetsleys, fucking love Geetsleys. I don't know who this is. Sometimes algorithm recommends me like really small YouTubers. Zephyr, oral farming must be stopped. That's so true, King. Mr. Nightmare, Zeph again, Brian F. Doremi. Oh yeah, I was watching a little bit of Tetris stuff lately. Not a bad recommendation. Pool. Yeah, just to end it off. Just to end off that probably very long video because I am a terminal yapper and I talk a lot when I'm making like a React video and stuff. Yeah, Brian F had what was recognized pretty widely as like a good girl. Somebody call me a good girl? Nice. Brian F had a pretty widely recognized like disagree, and when I say widely recognized, I mean like in his chat, like disagreeable media take about Dune 2, and chat like failed to engage with it, but you know, it's possible to engage with it, be like, yeah, I understand, and like I see that, and then still be like, but I liked the movie, and that you know that's fair. And I feel like it's indicative of some of the ways in which people regularly fail certain like critical thinking checks. Like imagine you're like you get fucking vibe checked in D&D. Like it's like, oh, stat check. You know, like you have to roll for fucking intelligence. Everybody's failing these intelligence rolls because they don't realize they're being pitched an intelligence roll or something like that. Harry Dubois check. Many such cases. Fucking leftist meme check. You get presented with a fucking excerpt from Karl Marx Das Kapital and, you know, some shit. I feel like more people would pass the check in that scenario than with like regular ass media consumption. And I feel like that's a problem. I feel like it is a problem. It is a component part of other problems, but it's worth talking about that. Like for some reason, people don't necessarily perceive a regular movie going experience or watching a show or consuming any sort of media as something that necessarily has to be engaged with critically, with a critical lens of thought, that you would approach something that you would also use to approach something like studies in college, reading like a economics paper or something like that, you know? Just because it's not like a data-driven nerd shit by the numbers kind of thing that you're presented with, if that makes sense. But yeah, critical thinking good, and like I don't know, Brian F bad because no like Dune gur, but also Brian F good because critical thinking. Yeah, death to consumerism, death to consumerism, death to America caca, and so forth. Eternal subjugation to all the kinky bottoms who love being insulted or some shit like that. You will get put in the oubliette in parentheses sexy. End the segment. There's one thing I was watching, just like those transsexual stuff we've done in chat. That is true. That is my most transsexual post yet. Many, unfortunately, not many such cases. It will continue. There will be more of that in the future. Probably. I might have to limit it to not get banned by Twitch. We'll see. But, you know. I was very few cases, unfortunately. There will be more. So I play some Tetris. I used to play Tetris like semi-competitively. I don't know if anybody's seen Tetrio. That shit is way too fast for me. I'm a product of the like Puyo Puyo Tetris days of competitive Tetris. I dabbled in a little bit of Tetris 99. I love making T-spins. I love playing this old school game in a way that makes like people who played original Tetris like shit themselves and stuff like that. In the same way that I love playing Smash Bros like a maniac and fighting games like a maniac, I also love playing Tetris like a maniac. But I'm not that good at the game. You know who is that good at the game are the Tetris top players. Tetris 99 was the like product of the battle royale format when every game was like a battle royale for no reason. And the idea of Tetris 99 is a free for all where there's 99 people who play Tetris and they send garbage to each other, whatever. You extrapolate the Tetris versus format to encompass 99 people. They introduced a teams mode and a French, or at the very least Francophone player, top player, Doremi, basically brigaded a Tetris lobby with a bunch of his followers and told them all to pick blue. But there was one person in the there was one person in the lobby who was not a follower of Doremi, who was Japanese top player Amemiya Tayo, who picked red. I was watching this just a little bit before stream.
37分40が間に合うね。38分にパスワード111111で部屋立てるんで、皆さんは青にしていただき、俺が赤でいきます。さあどうなるか。いくよ。3、2、1、はい、111111。さあどうだ。俺赤ね、みんな青。さあどうなる。
Big news for the unemployed. No, I just thought this was really funny.
ちょっと早かったかな、30分。俺赤です。皆さん、ちゃんと青にするのを忘れずに。
So people are joining.
さあ、98に実現するか、さすがに。
I think I gotta skip ahead a little bit.
ありえないほど超究極多
So here you see all 99 people are in the room.
撃が待ってるかもしれない、もしかしたら。さすがに98はでもきついと思うよ。忘れ人、そう、忘れ人もなんいると思うしね。おお
Okay.
ってるかもしれない、もしかしたら。
So he picks red.
98はでもきついと思うよ。忘れ人、そう、忘れ人もなんいると思うしね。おお、うわー、やべえ、全員だ。なんだこれは。
98 blue team versus 1 red team. He wins this, by the way. Legitimately, you can. The match goes on forever. You fast forward to the end. Amemiya wins this. He beats the shit out of 98 other people in Tetris simultaneously. He plays so like consistent too. Like I watched through this and a lot of it is uneventful, except okay, I legitimately don't know how you play Tetris under these kinds of conditions because look what happens when he clears a line. Look at how are you supposed to see the stack of blocks? I can't see anything. That is true. That's the you can fucking see the fucking anime pop out eyes expression on his face as he fucking said that. Like, look at this shit. Every time he clears a line, you can't see anything. You can't, like, legitimately, I couldn't tell how do you, like, when you're dropping a piece, the pieces drop really fast. How the fuck do you see what you're dropping the piece onto? Jesus. Nonetheless, it was very funny. I think This is from 6 years ago. It was December of 2019. I revisited that because I'd been playing some Tetris lately, and so I found it very funny. I do the the top players can stack a lot faster and more consistently than I can, but I definitely like the thing that I have the most fun doing is setting up the most deranged T spins of all time to such an extent that like it's part of the fun of Tetris is that you identify certain shapes that make for a T-spin, and then you just build around that shape. And there's like openers, but then recognizing the shapes in the middle of the game when there's not like a preset slew of pieces that you know can just make the shape that you want is the greatest feeling because it's like, oh wow, haha, your stack looks horrible. How are you ever gonna recover from this? And then you just fucking, it's like pulling a rabbit out of your hat. It's a great feeling. Hey, what's this? Uh-oh. Uh, oh boy. Seven hours ago, 3 hours ago, 20 minutes ago, 4 hours ago, 5 hours ago. Guardian, what's up? It seems like Trump is following through with trying to take control of Greenland. Mineral rich, largely self-governing part of Denmark. US boarded a Russian oil tanker. Yeah, I heard about that. I didn't know it was in the context of this. I didn't know that boarding the Russian oil tanker was in the context of potentially annexing Greenland. But it seems like the administration is actually serious about annexing Greenland, which I can only imagine what that's going to yield. Again, part of the broader project of the tech native America. Seriously, I don't know. I don't know. Buy Greenland. Surely this will make groceries less expensive in America. Surely this will bring down the cost of rent. Except, no, obviously not. They fucking laugh at the question when asked. Love that they're sane-washing the Trump administration, by the way, by saying, oh yeah, the Truman administration did the same thing, as though it's like normal. And of course, the Truman administration made an offer and Denmark just said no. And they're like, all right, we'll keep it under wraps so that nobody has to know that we asked. Yeah, EU about to release a strongly worded letter. Or worse yet, they just fucking let the US buy it. Like comparing the Truman administration behind closed doors, making a private $100 million offer to purchase Greenland for purposes of national security during the Cold War is so disanalogous to the Trump administration today, openly posturing to muscle Denmark into selling Greenland to us or otherwise invading and militarily annexing Greenland. These may both be expressions of empire, but this is so much stupider and more blatant and way, way the fuck like more destabilizing for everybody everywhere. You know? Again, the fact that they're comparing these is sane washing. Oh, also, comparing this to buying Alaska from Russia. Again, sane washing because these were like the circumstances under which America bought Alaska were very different than what's presently occurring. Danish and Greenlandic governments repeatedly said it is not for sale. Rubio reportedly told members of Congress this week that the goal was to buy the territory. So already it's like, yeah, we're buying it. It's not for sale, but we're going to buy it anyway, which means they're taking it by force either way, either by implied force of like, you're going to sell it to us or we're going to take it, or they decline to sell it and America just like invades or some shit. Poll in January found 85% did not want their homeland to become part of the U.S., with only 6% in favor, as if popular sentiment means anything for immediate policy consequences. Very good. The one time a poll would be reliable, and they're like, well, you can't always trust the polls. What the fuck is wrong with you, Guardian? I mean, they're also extremely captured, so we know what's wrong with them. WK is starting to support Chinese imperialism because China is so stable they won't start World War III. Legitimately, like, that's part of the reason for the Chinese century. It's like China just rolls up, says, we will invest billions of dollars to build railroads and hospitals. Yes, we are authoritarian, but we will also invest in infrastructure and won't start World War III. So you should hang out with us and our economic bloc, actually. Like, this is one of those moments where this is how you define critical support for China, is that you're critical of China, but also they're like the least bad of the three major military powers right now. Low-key, yeah. What the fuck? Trump's promises to invest billions of dollars into the territory. Less clear cut. Yeah, by investing billions of dollars, they probably mean set up resource extraction to, well, take the resource. I mean, that's why they want Greenland in the first place, right? Yeah, so the options are either they're going to diplomatically strong arm Greenland or Denmark, or they're going to just roll in with tanks and the military. Yeah, and until recently, American imperialism was also built off of soft power. America, I would say, is like not as good at wielding soft power as China, but there wasn't exactly a shortage of soft power to wield, right? China's a global creditor and the United States is a global debtor, and there's soft power in both of those. But characteristic of the reactionary backside of America is the default into hard power as opposed to soft power, which is just a way more viable model of geopolitics and imperialism in the 21st century. It's just way more viable if you're China or America. Like, either way, you say, we will provide you with cheap electric vehicles. We will provide you with railroads, so long as you are, obsequious to certain of our interests. We will provide this stuff for cheap. You'll get railroads, schools, hospitals, whatever, construction, infrastructure. You'll get all these material benefits if we also get some stuff that we want out of it, with the understanding that this is kind of slated to us because we're very powerful, right? Like, that's an expression of soft power. Whereas America comes in, it's like, you're going to do what we want or we're going to shoot you. Like, that hard power just doesn't work as well, right? Like, sure, using hard power could get a country to do what you want them to do, but it's so volatile and way more violent and less abstractly violent. Like, hard power is what leads to failed states. Soft power leads to, yes, debt traps and a lot of like problematic economic relationships, but an ultimately more stable economic situation. And again, it's like hard power leads to World War III and soft power doesn't. It's the bar that's being set here. It's a very low bar. Yeah, hard power is short-term goals and soft power is long-term goals, And the US is no stranger to this kind of expression either. Think about the Marshall Plan. The Marshall Plan after World War II, the economic projects that we did in Europe, in Germany, particularly France, Japan, those were all expressions of American soft power. They had some elements of hard power with American troops being on the ground, but fundamentally it was America investing economic resources into developing infrastructure and repairing war-torn countries so that we would have some degree of socio-political influence in those affairs and could project more economic influence to sweeten the pot for America and American partners. That's the modern, like, practical mode of imperialism. De Gaulle saw that trap coming miles away. What a fucking genius. There's a good reason that a lot of French people still refer to de Gaullism as like a valid ideology. There's like, you can definitely, you know, you can see the arguments for some of that economic nationalism, specifically in response to an imperialist flavor of internationalism, you know? I think America is actually going to follow through with this. As I've outlined how this is like really dumb and like not a good idea and like only viable in the short term, like long term, this is going to have massively destabilizing consequences for the world. The fact that the United States isn't willing to engage in such outdated expressions of hard power to seize parcels of resources from certain countries is like, it's going to, like I mentioned in the segment about Venezuela, it's going to facilitate the decline of the United States because it's all for the sake of like consolidation of wealth and power. Europe has said that they won't let that happen. I hope that they won't let it happen, but it's not out of the realm of possibility that they will just let it happen, because where Venezuela is dipping your toe in the water, Greenland would be jumping into the pool, right? And they were willing to support America on toppling and seizing control over Venezuela, but they may, and they'll probably just be sort of uncomfortable with America doing the same to Greenland. I don't know if they'll put up any meaningful opposition, though they should, and maybe they will. That is more of a question in my mind with Greenland than with Venezuela. Anyways. It would be just as illegal and unconstitutional as well. Like, God, it's kind of crazy how little the law actually matters now. Spain has said that they will put troops on the ground if necessary. That's based. And that makes me think that, like, Europe might actually not let that happen. That's based and like drawing a line in the sand. Even if like the American military would probably bulldoze over European militaries pretty easily, unless it was like literally all of them. The fact that any European country is willing to put their nuts on the table like that does make me think that like it's significantly less likely that America gets away with, you know, military brinksmanship there. Though as to like whether or not America actually still follows through with like annexing Greenland in some form, I don't know. I don't know what shape that's going to take. Aoife is live, so I'm going to raid Aoife. I think. Maybe. Wait, what's she doing? What's she doing? Stop.
Yourself.
She's twittering. I don't want to watch that, so I'm just going to raid Hassan. He's covering the stuff mostly that I just covered. He might have more thoughts on the seizing of the Russian tanker and like Greenland than what I've just described. But he's obviously not going to be as cool or correct as yours truly, but yeah. It's also quite logical that we do this because we were a Hispanic country. That is true. Hispanic socio-political identity stay winning. Like unironically, though. I don't know what it is about the Hispanic countries. Their politics are just way cooler and funnier and like more interesting. Particularly in South America. They be doing some goofy shit down there. All right. Enjoy the Hasanabi broadcast. I will be back next week. Hopefully doing more of just like shit that I feel like. So, yeah, see you then.